Hi everyone, my name is Beth Hudson and I'm a collaborator with Inclusion Incorporated. I'm coming to you from Hlidlikwe First Nation, also known as Fort Simpson in the Northwest Territories. I'm grateful to have the opportunity and the space to share a little bit about myself and to also share a little bit about my experience as an Indigenous person growing up in Canada. As an Indigenous person, I've been displaced from my traditional territory, and it's been an ongoing traumatic journey for me for my entire life. It's important to note that while I was adopted by a non-Indigenous family who loved me and gave me all the support that I needed to become a strong Indigenous woman, there's still a lot of trauma to unpack. And over the last year, I have, both fortunately and unfortunately, had to unpack a lot of that. The pandemic has affected us globally. That's a level of trauma that we've all experienced collectively. But on top of that, as an Indigenous person, I've had to endure a lot of trauma my entire life. It's been compounded in so many ways from the pandemic, from being separated from the family that I knew, losing my birth mother, and feeling more displaced than ever. A lot of Indigenous people have endured similar stories, have endured similar hardships, and I'm here to put a call out for anyone watching this video to please tune into current events, to please do some research into the impact of intergenerational trauma of residential schools and what it means to move forward in this era of truth and reconciliation. I'm currently living in Hlidlikwe First Nation in Fort Simpson in the Northwest Territories, and something that the nation doesn't really know about is the massive flooding that we've had here. There's been a state of emergency issued. We're through the worst of it now. We have power and water back on. But we're not the only First Nation to have experienced this sort of devastation. In fact, we're lucky that we have had some sort of response to help us get through this. We're almost on the other side of it, but it's been hard. Another layer has been, if you've checked the recent news, the discovery of the 215 children that were found in a mass burial site in BC. This is unleashing a lot of trauma, not only for myself, but for many Indigenous Canadians who can relate to that story. What hit me the hardest when this story came out is that the last residential school closed in 1996. Upon further reflection, the youngest children identified in the mass burial grave were as young as 3. I would have been 4 years old when that last residential school closed, and that's not lost on me. In fact, there are many Indigenous Canadians right now who are struggling with the same feelings and the same amount of trauma. It's important in moving forward to listen to those around you, that we need to share our stories and that we need to move forward together. There's no way to get through trauma alone. If I've learned anything, it's that. I'm grateful for the amazing community around me that supports me. I'm grateful for my collaborators and the space they give me to tell my story. And I'm grateful to everyone who takes the time to do the research, to learn more, to help us unpack that trauma, and hopefully find a way towards collective healing. Now more than ever, with everything going on, it's so important that we find a way to unify, that we find a way to move forward and talk about these things. And we need to be truthful. We need to be truthful, we need to be honest, and there needs to be transparency and accountability. In moving forward, I really encourage all Canadians to please review the 2015 Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the recommendations put forward. I highly encourage you to please research current events, to please research the impact of residential schools and Canada's genocidal tactics at assimilating Indigenous peoples. And I urge you to consider these levels of trauma and these levels of harm and violence that have impacted an entire population of Canadians. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my words today. I hope that I've been able to connect with some of you. And if you have the time and you want to learn more, you can check out my episode of Bridges of Belonging, where you can learn a little bit more about my journey as an Indigenous person growing up in a non-Indigenous family in a non-Indigenous city center. I'm just grateful for everyone who's taking the time to listen, who's taking the time to hold people accountable, and who's taking the time to find a way to move forward together. Thank you so much.